Hi, Omar.
Hey, Jim, and that's Enzo, who I'm trying to feed right now.
Ah, he sings so well.
There you go.
Sounds like you're torturing the poor child.
No, I was trying to manage the Zoom call and then trying to grab a bottle and trying to feed him all at the same time.
Multitasking. Hello, Bruce. Hello, Debbie.
Hi. Sorry to be running a few minutes late. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chanel. Let me just go through that we have the whole, well, enough people. Let's see, Jim, Bruce, Omar, myself. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. There's Leo.
Hey, Debbie.
Hello. There's Jay.
Hello, Leo.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I am well. I had a nice lunch in New Jersey with my friend this afternoon.
Well, it's a lovely day. All right, I think we have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the only person we don't have, or people, are DOT. So I am just going to call the meeting to order at 7:04.
Are they coming or are they not coming?
There we go. There's Lyle.
There we go. Good. They're coming.
And I'll expect Kimberly in a moment. So welcome to the November meeting of Traffic and Transportation. My name is Debbie Nabavian. I'm chair of this committee. Tonight we have committee members Leo Jimenez, the committee assistant chair, as well as Jim Berlin, Bruce Robertson, Omar Tejada, Jane Mazer. Did I say Bruce? Yeah. Okay. So Mary Anderson's excused tonight, and we'll see if Robin catches up with us. So tonight we were hoping to have a formal presentation on the busway, which, as people remember, there's this, we have a 1-year period where the busway is considered a pilot project, and will be, we want to be particularly attuned to what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what people are experiencing. Lyle and Kimberly will take us through a little bit of information, but basically the more formal presentation to us on the how's it going and all the data has been postponed for a little bit, just in terms of where the data collection is at, but they can tell us more about that. But I did want to still use the time to just kind of understand what's going to happen between now and like when we are going to get an opportunity to have a more robust presentation, because it's definitely been a very big deal, and there's a lot of people in the community that have things to say about it. So I've asked them to still come here and talk to us about what we can know and sort of what the process is going to look like for feedback. James.
I would like to add something to the agenda. Sorry about my. As some of us are aware, there are finally traffic control agents, I believe, part of the police department at 178th and 179th Street, at Broadway and Fort Washington Avenue. And I would like to propose that we discuss a resolution asking that whomever it is make these people either permanent, or as they as we discussed a long time ago, that the second there's word of problems with the bridge, they will be able to quickly get there. Because I think, based upon what I've seen around the neighborhood, although it didn't look good today, and I did actually see the traffic agents when I came off the bridge, the traffic had been better. There had been fewer backups on like Fort Washington. So I would like to propose that for the agenda.
The only thing, and I'm happy to second that, but before I do that, let me just ask you a question. So that, to my mind, has to be along with public safety, and we haven't had that conversation with them. Can we go ahead and do that now and then just kick it to them? And they just don't know it yet? Or
well, the thing is that we probably want to do it sooner rather than later, because people who have talked to these agents have heard that it's temporary. They may be gone in 2 weeks.
I understand that,
And
but
so
but
I think we could
yeah.
start talking about it sort of as a preliminary, and inherently we will involve them.
okay.
I hope, I don't think they're going to be insulted.
All right, I'm willing to second that.
Thank you.
And that'll be it. So I hope to keep this short. I'll just remind, I know we have a few people, for just in terms of the attendees, people have opportunity to ask questions or make comments of like 2 minutes. And then if you're asking the question of somebody, they have about a minute. So meaning altogether, we try to, you have 3 minutes, and that's including the time that somebody is responding. And that's it. So Lyle, are you, and is Kimberly, I see Lyle, I see your name twice. Is one of the Lyles Kimberly? Or Lyle, are you just giving us double Lyle tonight?
And I thought I was seeing double.
Okay, I think it's both me.
There we go. I see Kimberly. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
So I'm just, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure.
Tell us what you can tell us.
Yeah, so we had hoped to, we talked about coming this month with an update on the busway. As we had mentioned, we wanted to wait until traffic had normalized a bit. So we didn't want to take our counts in the summer. And then really school didn't get into session until mid-September. So we're still at this point working to collect that data. There's a lot of projects that, we're kind of backlogged on data, especially with the pandemic. So we don't have a full update with all of our data, but we wanted to just touch on a few points. Just as a reminder, the Busway launched in April, and we had a 60-day warning period for camera enforcement, and that ended in July. And so since then, we've been issuing summons. And then we've been monitoring since then. We've done some small changes. We're looking to add gantry signs. That's in the works. So those are the overhead signs to help make it more clear to drivers. We also we had our signals team out there looking at Broadway to kind of see what was going on as far as backups there based on the concerns that we'd heard. We did adjust the signal time a little bit to help with that, but we are noticing that a lot of the issue there is coming from double parked vehicles. So that's something else we'll have to work through with enforcement and potentially some curb regulation changes. Another thing that happened since launch was that we consolidated bus stops at the request of the council member and of the CB12 chair. And so we consolidated the 2 bus stops that run either side of St. Nicholas to the east side. So we have one larger bus stop on that side now.
Wait, you mean on the eastbound direction, there was a stop to the east and the west of the intersection of St. Nicholas? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And so that now there's only one kind of serving St. Nicholas? Is that?
Yes, but it's longer, and we moved the bench that was over at the other stop over to the east side. So there's now a bench at that stop, and we added a leaning bar there as well. And so, like I said, we don't have full traffic data or full analysis, but we can share that the bus speeds compared, we did some quick comparisons with 2019 and 2020, and we are seeing increases in both directions at all times that the busway is operational. And in the eastbound direction, compared to 2019 pre-pandemic, we're seeing a range of like 15 to 30 % increases in bus speeds. And this is October 19. We actually had to compare to September, so it's not a direct comparison, but just for a preliminary look. And then in the westbound direction, we're seeing between 25 and 42% increases in bus speeds. So we'll give more details on that when we come back with the full report, but just to kind of share that we are definitely seeing increased bus speeds. And then looking at some of the data on the surrounding streets, just kind of we did some preliminary sample checks to see if we looked at Amsterdam, Audubon, St. Nick, Wadsworth, Broadway, and then all of the cross streets essentially from 176 up to 185th. And in general, we're not seeing huge changes in speeds in a few places, including 184th and 185th. We actually, on this spot check, which again is not like a full analysis, we saw actually better speeds. And then in a few locations, we saw some slight slowdowns, like on 179th Street. But we're talking about, a change in speed of like 1 mile per hour along that stretch. So again, we'll come back with more information, but just our preliminary analysis is not showing major impacts on the surrounding streets and is showing improved bus speeds. So as we continue to monitor and collect our full data set, we'll be looking at that and analyzing it and planning to schedule the next community advisory board meeting in the late fall or early winter, and then come back to CB12, we hope, in January. And so we're happy to be here tonight and give that brief update, but also would love to hear more from folks about what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and that can help us guide the analysis we put together over the next month or so.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. As usual, I'm going to go first, and I might need to go twice. But just because I want, for the benefit of the committee, I know I touched upon some of this when you and I were updating last, but I did see something from Con Ed about Amsterdam work 181 to 184. That's going to be many months, and if it's if it's at all similar to what we've seen elsewhere in the area, it can be quite challenging at times.
Mhm.
I mean, which relates a little bit to me not completely understanding, like, is it the case that when people are coming eastbound from the Bronx over the Washington Bridge, that they have to turn on Amsterdam, that you cannot go straight one block, or you can go straight
No,
one
this
block?
is the kind of one of the one locations where you can turn on Amsterdam, but you're allowed to continue up to Audubon.
To Audubon. Oh, okay, so then that's okay. So let's
But still,
an eye
I'm
on
glad you
that,
brought it to my
because,
attention, and we'll
yeah,
take it.
like,
and
where
coordinate.
it could get chaotic, and I guess the other thing is that's going to definitely affect the data is we have yet to see this area go with a one train station because it's been closed the whole time.
Mhm.
And that's a huge, it's a hugely utilized station, and it's also a big transfer point to buses. So, and for serving, well, whatever, enough said. So, I imagine things are going to be fluid, and whatever. I am now calling like every few days saying, can you tell me something about the A train on the one train? Can you tell me something about the one train?
So yeah,
but-
I think it's really good to point those out, and we'll make sure our project team is taking that into consideration. It may just be though that we have to take what we can get now, and then we'll have to continue to monitor and see how things change, because we can't really monitor something that's not a current condition.
Right. And when we have the full report, and I know I'm about violating my own rule, but when we have the full reporting, there was a number that was provided in the original presentations that spoke to DOT's estimate of how many people were traversing that stretch with no business on 181st. It was simply to avoid the cross Bronx. Like, will you be taking a look at how the busway has impacted that, i.e. dissuaded some of that traffic to just stay on the highways as opposed to cutting through the neighborhood?
I don't have an answer to that because I'm not I haven't been developing the monitoring plan, but I think it's a really good point, and I will raise it with them. So anything that you guys can give us or ask us, I'll take a note and bring it back to.
Right. But yeah, I think that metric is helpful, particularly for people that are concerned about, like, are we also dissuading people who have business on 181st? So I think it would be good for us to get some visibility on that. Jim, you had comments?
Yes. I don't know if Kimberly was here earlier when I asked that we put the traffic agents on 178th Street and 179th Street at Broadway and Fort Washington on the agenda. Were you, Kimberly?
I was not. I was a few minutes late. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well, let me
Dial
give
was
you
on.
a 1 second story.
Sure.
Anytime there's a problem on the George Washington Bridge, and sometimes even when there isn't, traffic backs up into our neighborhood and essentially almost causes gridlock all over the place. And if it gets really bad, it could even do that. And generally, nothing is done about it. Now, by some miracle, and I'm mentioning to you, not that you're in charge of these people, but you'll be interested in what's going on since it affects your, what happens on your roads. There are now 4 traffic agents, and they're there, and certainly I've been seeing less backups. So and we're gonna be asking that they either be made permanent or they be sort of on call. So when there's a problem on the bridge, they can come out and save the day. Because so that's so I just wanted to be that one thing is I just wanted to be aware of that fact. And insofar as DOT, comments on such thing or talks to the other departments, you could look into, because this may well affect the traffic on the busway, because when things get really screwed up, it's going to affect 181st Street, it's going to affect all the cross streets, and it can be horrendous and scary. That's number one. Now, I don't want to be a nitpicker, but you mentioned that 1 mile an hour difference is not very big. That's only if the speed is something reasonable. when things get bad on 179th Street or these other streets, and not necessarily due to your efforts, 1 mile an hour is probably the difference between moving and not moving. So, and that's just pure math. But the thing is that I was just mentioning that statistical point. But the thing is that what you are doing and what we are seeing from the police department with these agents, these are all very positive things. And the attention, because of the busway, that you are giving to the traffic conditions in our area is also very, very salutary. So I just wanted to say, in general, I'm very, very happy with the attention you're paying, with even the minimal reporting we're getting now, and keep up the good work and be aware of the stuff that's going on by the bridge.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank
and
you.
Just for reference, I didn't want to share all the information because it is really preliminary, but the numbers that we were talking about was in the range of like 16 to 18 miles per hour. So
Yeah, no, I was just making my statistical
yeah,
point.
no, I
Right.
love statistics. So thank you.
We just can't, we wouldn't be able to stop you from your being a statistician.
Physicist lady.
Well, that's very much part of physics, it's part of a lot of things, but I feel like I had one more thing. I mean, Kimberly, I've always had this idea that that we should be allowing eastbound traffic coming from Fort Washington and Bennett that wants to go straight to be allowed to go straight to Wadsworth, again, eastbound. And I understand that there's nothing they can do on Wadsworth because it's all bus stop, but there is too much pressure. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the block between 181 and 180th on Broadway. And so by eliminating at least a couple of the right turns, and again, understanding that there's a double parking problem. I know it's a little wacky, but to me, that would take a little pressure off. I mean, that was more of an issue when the busway first opened. And I will also say that, just a sidebar for my day job, that, Congressman Espaillat had raised the issues with traffic enforcement related to the backups from the 179th Street ramp, and that relates also to the HHP northbound ramp onto the upper level. And which results, so he had sort of written a letter to NYPD, and we is sort of the traffic agents was sort of one result of that. But one thing that they did observe, because obviously they went out as well, was also the double parking. They've got their eyes on that too, as I understand it, that they identified that as sort of one of the problems was on that section of Broadway. So, hopefully we'll make a little progress, because the issues on the ramps to the upper level aren't going away. They still have a ways to go on the upper level. I mean, we're getting closer, but there's still months and months. So does anybody else have a question for DOT about the busway specifically? Okay. Joseph Lott. One second. All right, you should be able to talk now. If you just, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. My kids go to Wheels, which is on the 182nd and the 183rd. And I had a question about sort of how you're measuring the statistics of the cars diverted to those cross streets, one of which is closed during school days. And 183rd goes along the back of the school. So you'd mentioned statistics on speed, which is a measure of, getting cars to where they're going relatively efficiently. And I wanted to make sure that you're also gathering data on volume, so that we can understand, in a couple more months, how many more cars we're seeing past the school and, past all these other institutions on the side streets.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the data that we're able to kind of gather on an ongoing basis is from INRIX, which I believe is from I used to know the details on this, but it's like data that we can kind of capture at any point that's based on GPS and all those things. So that's something that's available to us, so we can kind of pull it for any time period. That's what I have tonight, but the volumes is what we have to send out people to actually put out to collect that data. So that's what's coming that we don't have yet. So we'll have that in the future.
Okay, that's helpful. But as long as it's part of the plan, we'll be able to see some of those numbers. Thank you.
And just to reinforce, and Mr. Lott, I hope you come back, is that the target then that DOT is communicating is that we'll all be back for the full presentation in January. And obviously, if we, if anything big happens before that, I'll keep everybody updated. Let's see. I think before we move on to Jim's new agenda item, I just want to kind of run through, I think we have a few questions that are very DOT oriented. And Lyle, I'll maybe let you speak to this, but Lyle followed up with me about, remember we had talked about the committee being invited to do a walkthrough with DOT in the Upper Amsterdam area, where they are working with the student team in designing solutions for to address the pedestrian safety issues up at the top of Amsterdam. And so Lyle's going to give us dates, some proposed dates for that walkthrough. Lyle, do you want to just speak to that for a minute? Or is there anything I'm mangling?
Oh, no, you're pretty much spot on with others that I wrote to you earlier. Basically, just to reiterate a point or two from the meeting in October, we had come to the committee to give the preliminaries in regards to a project that we're going to come back to present to the committee in December on our project for Amsterdam Avenue, I believe between 188th to Fort George Avenue. Our safety division is currently working on a proposal, and we're working with I Challenge Myself, the students of GW Educational Campus, and we've been going to other stakeholders in the neighborhood just to get some ideas, some thoughts, just how you look at the street, and some suggestions that they might have. Try to incorporate everything and present this to the committee next month. One of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to bring the committee out to this location on site, so that we all can get a feel for this location together, walk this area, and see if you guys have any ideas or thoughts, any potential suggestions on what we could possibly do in this area that we can add to our data. Since we're going to be presenting in December, ideally we're trying to see if we can have this walkthrough with the committee sometime in the next week or two, ideally hopefully before the Thanksgiving holiday, so that it gives our team enough time in order to speak with you, to collect additional data, incorporate everybody's ideas and thoughts, and present it in December. So as I mentioned to Debbie, there are a few dates I'm just gonna give to her and to the committee, just to kind of throw around, just to see when some of you, most of you, all of you might be free the next 2 weeks, so we can go up to this location and take a walk together and just see what we can collaborate and brainstorm and think about collectively. I think.
All right, great. And then because it involves the student team, is this something that would happen like during school hours or after school hours?
Ideally would probably be, I guess, technically after school. We're meeting with the students on a regular basis, usually after school with them. Probably in the same vein, we keep it after school. Probably not with the students, would be a separate walkthrough, but probably say like around 3:30, kind of later on in the day.
All right.
That kind of thing.
Why don't you send me some proposed dates, and then maybe if we narrow it down to 2, because I have to juggle with my schedule, then I'll present that to the committee, and so let's do it in a 2-step process. So that and that'll be great. I'll look forward to that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll send some dates to you tomorrow, and we can take it from there.
Okay, wonderful. And in the spirit of kind of just moving through some DOT old business, and then also capturing some issues in the attendee world. So, and I'm going to put, just warning Allegra and Jody that I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. So I have sort of two issues that Allegra has touched upon recently, one in writing and one in the Q&A today. So let me just start with Amber Charter School, which is something this committee talked about, I think, a year ago, last November or December. And it's sort of, but now the school's been open, so things are happening. And also we were waiting to look at the intersection at the top of the steps until school was in session so that you could do your look at it. So I guess my question to DOT would be just sort of like, is there any update on that stop sign thing? And Allegra, just leaving, I want to come back to the Broadway Bridge thing, but like, can you just sort of, you had a little bit more, I think, on that, or did I cover it? I don't think I covered everything you had. Okay, you should be
Okay.
able to go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So with respect to the Amber Charter School, so there's two intersections along 215th Street now. The setup to just for the board, so it's in the Park Terrace area in Inwood, and Park Terrace East is a one-way street that goes southbound between 218 and 215 Street, and then it is a two-way street for a block that dead ends into Aisha Park between 215 and South. And then there is 215 Street, which is a one-way street between Park Terrace East and Park Terrace West, and then a two-way street between Park Terrace West and Indian Road. Okay, so the Amber Charter School sits on 215 Street between Park Terrace East and Park Terrace West. There are no stop signs to get to and from that school. So the Park Terrace East and 215, there are no stop signs at all. And you have a dead end two-way street and a one-way street that come in together. And it's the top of the stair street. And then the intersection of Park Terrace West and 215 here is actually more dangerous because you have kind of a throughfare two-way street with a stoplight at the 215 in Seaman. So there's people entering into the Park Terrace area that way. That goes to a one-way street. And there's no stop sign. It just converts into a one-way street. And the charter school sits on that block. Right now, I think they're probably only 20-25% capacity. Like you'd have to get the numbers from them. So traffic will be significantly greater next year once they start spinning up to full capacity. But you can already tell it's become more challenging to get across the street, especially like Park Terrace West and 215th. There's just like a lot of traffic there. My daughter has a school bus that drops her off every day. We live opposite the charter school. Our entry to our building is exactly opposite to Amber. The school bus doesn't come to entry of my building anymore. It has to stop on Park Terrace West. It's just down the block because the traffic snarls up because it's all one way in there. 217th is one way, Park Terrace West is one way, Park Terrace East is one way, 215 is one way. And so you get this kind of circuit going and it gets stopped up. There's school buses coming in, there's delivery and construction trucks still coming in, and it's really difficult, especially that Park Terrace West and 215th, for the kids to see oncoming traffic. There's never the parents picking up their kids from school or slightly distracted, and a stop sign there would just be really helpful because my son's a 5th grader now. He's like an independent walker, and that intersection scares me because there's no stopping, and there's just a lot of moving pieces, and things aren't moving like you expect them to move. So yes, a stop sign there would be great. And I think that the stop, actually both, like going from two-way to one-way without a stop sign, just kind of weird in my humble opinion, but definitely worth studying, with the caveat that the traffic flow right now is only like the school at, their very baseline capacity. They've got, I think, K1 and 5, 6, but they're not at, even those grades aren't filled up.
Sorry, thank you, Allegra. So I guess Kimberly and Lyle, if you can respond, like, is there a way to expand that, what's it called, warrant study from not just 215 and Park Terrace East, but also 215 Park Terrace West,
Yeah,
as Allegra just.
So we did initiate that study or request that study from our signals division, I think about a month ago. It was around the time of the meeting. And so that it's good to know that capacity isn't full, because that is a challenge. We want to see as much volume as possible when doing this analysis. And usually once they've done a study, they won't repeat it immediately. So it's something we should probably consider. But so that's a study to see if it warrants a signal or an all-way stop.
Right.
And those, that study is also necessary even for us to consider installing something like an enhanced crossing, which doesn't have a control, but does have a crosswalk. So that's kind of the first step for that kind of thing. But now that you're raising a sort of bigger issue, I think it's something we can take a look at more broadly, perhaps reach out to
In
our.
the interim, son's just supposed to put on some reflective vest and make a run for it. Yeah, it's just, I know it's something that haunts like the traffic committee a lot, that you cannot get appropriate measures in place before there's actually a problem. And I know that some of the seminal work in doing traffic modeling was actually by DOT researchers here in New York City. So you should be able to predict from the enrollment numbers of the school, like the eventual, I think their capacity is going to be 923 students. It should be pretty basic, because there are these one-way streets, to just do a calculation of exactly what the traffic levels will be. I don't think that the warrant study that, prognostic forward models, like this is your bread and butter. Especially I heard Jim say something about statistics and physics. Like this was like something that you'd learn in a freshman 101 seminar. So you should totally do it now.
All right, well, but just to wrap it up. So Kimberly, you do think that there would be a way to sort of make sure that the warrant study doesn't just look at Park Terrace East and 215th and then looks at that?
Well, I think the warrant study is pretty specific, like they do it by intersection, but I think if you're raising a broader issue, then it makes sense for us to take a look internally at the broader condition in the area. And then I can also follow up and just sort of see what the best approach is, given that we anticipate there might be significantly more traffic next year.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, you get sort of the goal line here is we need some visibility on 215 and Park Terrace West. I mean, because the Park Terrace East intersection was sort of also to the issue of, like, in a sense, it's an intersection, but there's nothing there when you're at the top of the stairs. So this is a slightly different one. That's so.
Park West, the visibility.
All right, Allegra, we can't do the back and forth on this. So,
but visibility at the intersection in the interim, is it possible to have, visibility, heightened visibility at the intersection by having a little bit of buffer instead of cars parking all the way up to the very, very edge of the intersection?
So we'll take a look. Okay, I don't have the answer right now. I haven't looked at the intersection, but we'll certainly reach out to folks who are the experts in those and have them see if there's any short-term solutions that don't involve a signal study as well.
And okay, and then just and I don't want to go into it if the answer is yes, Allegra, but when you had a write-up about Broadway Bridge and how that's impacting pedestrian safety, the construction, did you send that to DOT? Or did that just come in? Did you just direct that to CB12?
I have reached out with 311 complaints a couple times, which are shut down in short order. So this reaching out to CB12 is my second order. It's my next level up of trying to address the problem.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is forward that to DOT. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten a chance. And then we can all follow up. Maybe Kimberly, I can put you in contact. I'll share the communication. Allegra put together a lot of information with pictures about a situation related to the construction on the bridge. And I guess I would also say I wouldn't mind. I mean, I know you're not the bridges division, but a presentation on that. I always feel like I don't know what's going on with that project. So I don't know if there's some natural point in the project that we could get an update. I'm open to suggestions on when that would make sense. Like, it doesn't need to be in the next 2 months. It could be, but maybe not. But I feel like I've a little bit lost the plot on that project. And Allegra's communication kind of reminded me of that. And then last, I want to put Jody on the spot, if you don't mind, to just give the committee an update on the walkthrough that I was not able to join in on with Upper Riverside Drive. The upper roadway, sorry, Riverside Drive, north of 158th. Yeah.
Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, on 2 weeks ago, on Tuesday, we had our city officials come and visit our area. We had Elle Taylor, Sean O'Bray, Carmen De La Rosa, and some of their staff, as well as we did have a couple of other additional, Maria Luna was there. And what we did was we did a walking tour from 158th Upper Riverside Drive, which is that narrow single lane roadway that runs to 165th. And we walked along that area addressing many issues as we went along. And we were lucky enough to have our city officials truly understand the issues, because in many, they live here and have experienced this area specifically. Sean's family, I think, lives here. He grew up here. And so it was really incredibly worthwhile. We addressed the stairs at 160, clearly need repair. We need lighting there. It's a huge thoroughfare from Lower Riverside to Upper Riverside, and it's been patched so many times that it can't be patched again. We truly need lighting. We've had several assaults in the last couple of months, an attempted rape and a shooting, all on this roadway. And so I think that, and that 160 between Riverside and Fort Washington, big drug area. It's been a drug area for a really long time. So we'd really love to see our sidewalks, our pathways, our greenways, all repaired so that we can traverse them, but also lighting, is essential in these areas. We don't have it at this point. One of the assaults was in the dog park at 165th. 165th, as you know, is a intersection that really needs to be looked at. We had the whole group try to traverse that intersection, and we almost killed every single city official in the process of trying to get across that intersection, because the only crosswalk is on the northern side. So I think that, really, and I've highlighted, in my email to Debbie, a lot of our issues, but primarily what we're looking for, loading, unloading zone. We've got to get these large trucks off our sidewalks. We need stop signs that slow traffic down along that roadway. We need pathways and greenways and sidewalks that, are not crumbling and non-existent. And we need lighting. And we really could use, which I think our city officials agreed with, is some kind of camera surveillance on 160. It's a pretty dangerous street to cross. And it's the main crossway to all shopping and groceries and everything that all of us Lower Riverside and Upper Riverside use. And that's pretty much it. But it's big.
So that last
Thank
piece
you,
is
Jody. Yeah.
160 between Riverside and Fort Washington is what you were
Yeah,
talking about?
that particular stretch is notorious for drug dealing. And that is where that stairs and that particular street was where the assault rape occurred. Young girl attempted. And then the shooting was on 161 and the assault and the dog park was at 165. And that was all in the last 3 or 4 months, guys. And that's only what I know. So we could use a lot. I don't know, Kimberly, if you've had a chance to look at the sidewalk, but it's pretty horrific from 160 to 165. All our alcoves along there could use lighting. And then the greenway in Riverside Park from like 162 to the dog park at 165. No lighting at all. Cars are broken into constantly along that stretch.
So I know Lyle, I think, was following up on some of the lighting issues. So I'm not sure if maybe Lyle, you have the latest there. on some of those issues.
I don't have. I'm gonna check with the team. I know that this area is concerning as far as the lighting. I'll see if I can get some updates as far as where we stand on that. I know there have been some requests to increase lighting in that area, which might be done as a capital project, but I'll check with our street lighting division just to see where we stand, and I can get back to you on the lighting between 160th and 165th on Riverside. I can do that.
And Lyle, for the loading zones, that's typically like a community board request, right?
Ideally, for loading zones, if there is parking that would be removed in certain locations, it would be something that DOT would consider if the board would send a resolution acknowledging that they would be okay with the parking removal if DOT were to consider loading zone in certain locations. A standard alternate site is currently in place there.
All right. Well, let me sort of separate two things that we are just talking about. So am I hearing you right that there's lighting issues that fall under capital and there's lighting that falls under operating maintenance?
Yeah.
And I imagine the difference is it new, didn't exist there before, or is it existing and it's just out or in disrepair of some sort? So it would be great to kind of understand how that divvies up and like what could get done fast versus what's the process, like what do we need to do? We had them both on this committee's, district needs statement, both on the capital and the operating. But sort of as specific as you can get about what it's going to take, I feel like that's something that we can make progress on. And I guess,
well, yeah, we can look to see pretty much what we can unravel between what we can at least address short term and what can be addressed, on a capital project. So we can get some clarity as to what we can do in that area. Like I said, now and what will require capital work. So
right. And then I'd rather, and I know I'm a little bit kicking the can on this topic, but I guess my goal line is if we need to do a resolution, we'll do a resolution, but I don't want to do a piecemeal. Like if we need to do a resolution, then let's get clear on, do we need to be asking for a traffic study? Do we need to be saying this thing on the loading zone? Do we need to say anything about capital lighting that relates to capital and not just maintenance? Like I want to know, and then let's do it. Maria Luna.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be on the video. But anyway, I joined the walk. I'm very much familiar with that area because Debbie, remember, I am arguing for a long time, opposing the changing the traffic going north because of the narrowness of that particular area. It is very dangerous. We have also another situation that maybe can be controlled by looking into the steps because the crimes or the people who commit assault and things like that, they use those steps to go from, down, the middle drive, what we call it, to the upper drive. But specifically, it's just the narrowness and the curve. You remember that is not a straight street. Also, we need to take a look at the bump that is there. I don't know if that's really necessary, if we have a loading zone that is really extremely necessary. So I urge that the resolution at this point have to deal first with the loading zone. The sidewalk on this, by the wall, what we call it the wall, is crumbling. It's really very dangerous. I mean, there is no really room for walking on that particular, side. Most of things have to be done probably at the same time. So my suggestion is that we take very seriously the request to the loading zone and also to repaving that particular area. Thank you. I took some pictures. I should have sent it to to the committee some time ago, and I just forgot. I saw someone else was going to do it. All right, so that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for being there, and thank you for providing even more info because we really, this one we're just gonna have to keep working on because we're still not there, obviously. All right. I think with that, I'm gonna move us to Jim Berlin's new agenda item. Kimberly, are you able to access the Q&A? And could you drop your contact info in there?
Yes.
If not, tell me, and then I'll paste it in when Jim's gets going.
Seems like I can't write. Is that normal?
It may be that, yeah, it may be.
Maybe if I answer a question. I can type an answer to a question. It just might not be.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can just, Allegra's asking, so if you can find Allegra's question and just put your, like basically your contact card with your title and all that good stuff. That'd be great. Jim, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, the George Washington Bridge, well, I didn't specifically mention earlier, but let's begin from the very beginning. The George Washington Bridge apparently is the busiest bridge in the world, and therefore it affects our community. And anytime there's a problem on the bridge, it tends to spill over onto, especially on the eastbound bridge, it tends to spill over into our community, first backing up the entrance at Fort Washington, and then it just percolates outward. So eventually, Fort Washington is the first north-south street to get messed up. Very quickly, 179th Street gets messed up, and so on, and it just spreads. It's a perfect, unfortunately, it's a perfect example of gridlock. Now, this is particularly bad sometimes on Fridays, but for example, it's also bad on Thanksgiving Day when it's sometimes almost impossible to access the bridge at a normal, when the roads are crowded.
The Saturdays have been have been just as bad during the construction period.
Okay, and it happens on other days too, the second there's some kind of incident on the bridge. Now, gridlock per se is and I'm sure merely mentioning that word gives agita to anyone from DOT listening. Once things get sufficiently locked up, you can't even move cars out of the way for emergency vehicles because they're all over the place. And sometimes when the bridge gets bad, you even have these characters who go the wrong way in the opposite lane just to go around people, and then suddenly it's just crazy. So by some miracle, and we've been asking for this for decades now. There have been traffic agents, NYPD traffic agents, I don't know exactly what their title is, at the 4 intersections of, 178th, 179th, Broadway, and Fort Washington, and things have been much better. But apparently they're only temporary. Now, putting the best face on it, maybe they're an experiment, and whomever will see that they're necessary and keep them there. But I think we have to get into the mix. And on 181st Street, we already have a firehouse. And if that gets gridlocked, the fire engines can't get anywhere. And what tends to happen is basically traffic stops going north and south. So there are ambulances that pick up supplies down 172nd Street in Amsterdam. There's an ambulance space there. They couldn't get north of 181st Street if they tried. So this is potentially an extremely dangerous situation. And again, because it involves, police department personnel, we should work in coordination, and maybe we don't even want to pass a resolution now, to just, understand the situation better and discuss it. Work in coordination with Public Safety Committee. And but we have to get that, again, we heard these guys are going to be gone in 2 weeks, which means that they may actually be there for Thanksgiving, which would be when we really need them. So the sooner we do this in coordination with our colleagues, the better. And before I saw the traffic all this traffic, my hair wasn't white, so it's all the fault of the traffic. But it is horrendous and really scary. So, and again, they finally did something, and as part of this resolution, of course, we would, compliment them on their foresight or whatever, and they deserve a compliment because they're finally doing what they're supposed to do. So that's, I think, all I need to say.
My suggestion, and I'm just basing this on how we approached it the last time we had a similar issue with Success Academy, is, the ask is of NYPD, and it's a combination of NYPD, the transportation command, but it also includes the 34th. And if that's the ask of the resolution, is asking something of them, then the resolution really needs to come from public safety. What we did a few years ago when we had, again, an analogous kind of situation was I went to the Public Safety Committee, then I think run by Richard Lewis, and I presented with him a resolution, but we did start it in public safety. And that would be my suggestion, is to draft something and then get on the agenda at public safety, because it doesn't really, it needs to point to the NYPD. The NYPD is still, I think, closing out 311 complaints on this issue and just saying different things like it's DOT, or it's a long-standing problem, or it's not. So I really think it needs to go start with that committee, even if you're driving it.
I don't have a problem with that. It's just that, we want to get it done sooner rather than later.
Okay, so I would say draft some bullets and reach out to Domingo and get on the agenda. Would be my advice.
Excellent.
But thank you for staying on top of this. This has been a cause celeb of mine as well. But I felt like it's hard because it's like, it is the street, but DOT really can't do that much. And it's terrible because we really can't leave the neighborhood when the neighborhood gets locked up. Okay. So with that, I feel like we've done new business and we've done old business, and I'm ready to wrap it up. Anybody from the committee? Am I missing anything?
No, but
Any
I agree,
follow-ups?
there's nothing wrong with a short meeting.
I know, we do it. I'm so long-winded, it happens rarely. Let me just take a quick scan. All right, so can I move to adjourn?
I second the motion.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Excellent
Good
job.
evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye, everyone.